Hello and welcome to the fifth of our Growing Care Farming monthly themed webinars. This webinar is going to give us some information on crowdfunding, what it is, how it works and how we go about it. So we really hope that you enjoy it and find it useful. Just some brief housekeeping points before we start. This webinar is being recorded and it'll be uploaded to the Social Farms and Gardens website in due course, so you can go back and revisit anything that you feel you've missed. Your details and attendance are private and we won't be sharing them with anybody. The attendees are not visible via video link and you're all automatically muted. You can only hear us. Any questions can be asked through the questions function in the menu. So you can type your question in and one of the team will pick it up and ask it on your behalf at the end of the presentation. Or if you really want, we can unmute you and you can actually ask the question in your real voice. Any links in the presentation will also be pasted to the chat function to enable attendees to click on and view the information during the webinar. So, welcome. You should be able to see four faces on the screen at the moment. I'm Deborah Evans, Regional Care Farming Manager for Growing Care Farming, and I'd like to introduce Anthony de Souza. Give us a wave, Anthony. He's going to be leading us through the webinar today. Anthony is very well placed to talk about our subject today, as he's delivered over 200 crowdfunding workshops across the UK and online. And he's helped hundreds of project creators to run successful crowdfunding campaigns, and also assists with resources and support via his Crowdfunding Mastery Academy. You can also see Pearl Cousins. Pearl, give us a wave. She's our Code of Practice Administrator. Pearl will be monitoring the questions during the webinar and she'll lead the Q&A at the end. But do please post any questions as they're occurring to you in that little question box, and we can pick them up as we're going along. And we've also got Sarah on hand. Hi Sarah, she's going to be monitoring the chat because there's a question function, also a chat function, so if you're wanting to put bits and pieces in there, comments or observations, please feel free as well. There is an option to either post in the chat or the questions publicly or privately. When the presentations start, we'll turn our cameras off apart from Anthony, so you'll only see him so that we don't distract you while you're concentrating on what he's got to say, but we will turn the cameras back on when we come to the end of the presentation. So I am just now going to hand over to Anthony to tell us all about crowdfunding. I'm very much looking forward to hearing about it because it's not something that I know an awful lot about, to be honest. So over to you, Anthony.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Crowdfunding. Well, crowdfunding is not a new concept as such. It's an old concept. It's been around for a while. It just wasn't called crowdfunding. And you know, when I think of crowdfunding, before the term became popular, which is about 8-9 years ago now, I remember running the London Marathon. And when I ran the London Marathon, like most of us do, we want to run for a particular support. We want to run supporting a particular cause. And what you do is you go around and get pledges beforehand, and then at the end of the actual race itself, you've got to go around and collect all the money. But now it's been simplified, and essentially what you do is you send someone an email with a link in it. They click on the link and up comes a page, and the page has all the crowdfunding information that you want. So today I'm going to go over what crowdfunding is all about, and I know most of us have been exposed to crowdfunding one way or another, and however, crowdfunding has grown dramatically over the last 8 years, and it's become more complex. There's thousands of crowdfunding websites out there serving all sorts of different types of crowdfunding. I'll go over the different types of crowdfunding as well, and you will also find that the crowdfunding itself. I mean, just think of a collection plate that. You've got a collection plate that goes around collecting lots of small amounts, and at the end of the collection, you've got a large amount, and that's essentially what crowdfunding is all about. It's involving a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and so here's a definition on about crowdfunding. It's asking a crowd of people to donate or invest money for a specific cause or project in exchange for various rewards. That is the Wikipedia definition, if you like. So essentially, it's a lot of small amounts that make up a large amount. And it's the thing I like about crowdfunding is it's all about people investing money in people. So let's have a closer look at crowdfunding. There are 5 different types of crowdfunding out there. And as I say, we probably experienced 1 or 2 different types. The first type is donation-based crowdfunding. So in other words, someone will donate something and not expect anything in return. The second type is rewards-based crowdfunding, which is the most popular. When I say the most popular, it's the most well-known type of crowdfunding out there. So if someone's going to invest in a rewards campaign, they expect something in return, a product or a service in return. The third type of crowdfunding is equity crowdfunding, and that's all about selling off a share or shares in your company, very much like Dragon's Den, if you like. You're selling off, instead of selling off, say, 10 or 15% to 1 or 2 dragons in Dragon's Den, what you're doing here is selling off the same percentage shares, but to hundreds of people who all come in with smaller amounts. The next type of crowdfunding there is debt-based crowdfunding. It's often referred to as peer-to-peer lending. And what that means, essentially, it's the same as going to a bank. Instead of going to a bank for a loan, you go to a crowdfunding website for a loan. And the same sort of procedures take place where you've got to pay back a loan from a bank, you've got to pay back a loan that you take out from a crowdfunding website as well. And then the last type of crowdfunding there is crowdfunding on the blockchain. It is basically using cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and what have you to raise funds online. So all of those types of crowdfunding are available for you out there. You've got to figure out which one of those types that you feel would best suit your situation. I've got a feeling that the audience that I'm addressing today is likely to probably consider 1, 2, or 3. In other words, donations, rewards, or equity crowdfunding, as opposed to any of the others. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one of these in greater detail now, and going to give you some specific examples, case studies, and what have you, and with a view to giving you an in-depth look, if you like, in terms of what's working out there. And so let's get on to the first type of crowdfunding. It's donation-based crowdfunding, and Just Giving is probably the most well-known website here in the UK on this particular topic, and it has expanded its offering over the years, and it's offering more and more opportunities for people to become involved. So you can now raise money. Initially, it was purely for charities or social enterprises, but you can now raise money for personal causes as well on this website. This website has raised a ton of money. And here's an example of Stephen. And he put up a page on Just Giving, and he then linked his page to a charitable cause, which was the Teenage Cancer Trust. And then he went out and he raised money, and all the money that he raised went towards the Teenage Cancer Trust. And it's all about Stephen's story. Some of you may have come across it. And the reason why I've got this particular example up is it's all about story. Crowdfunding is all about you telling a great story, and Stephen told a great story. And his story went on to raise an incredible amount of money. As you can see here, that he raised close on 5 million, which then went on to the Teenage Cancer Trust. And in this case, the website handles gift aid as well, and all these websites, all these crowdfunding websites charge a fee somewhere along the line. So they took their fee out of the gift aid. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, the Teenage Cancer Trust raised more than the money that you see there on the screen. The other very well known, in fact, the largest crowdfunding website out there globally for personal causes is Gofundme. I think all of us have heard of Gofundme one way or another. And it gives you an opportunity to go onto this platform and raise money for personal causes. This could be anything from medical expenses to looking after animals to even raising money for your honeymoon. So this particular website has helped raise billions and billions for personal projects across the world. Here are some of the top fundraisers on this particular website. Now, clearly, these are very high figures that have been donated: 92,000, 72,000, 66,000. I've put that up there to indicate to you that that's not the average amount that is raised on these platforms at all. It's definitely more like £1,000 or £2,000 that is raised for particular projects that are on these websites. Okay, so those are the two of the most well-known donation-based websites out there. You now have rewards-based websites, and these are probably better known in terms of being recognizable out there. The top one there is Kickstarter. Kickstarter is a platform which has literally raised, well over 5 billion for project creators out there. Essentially, at the end of the day, what you're looking at here is you've got to, well, most people who raise money on this particular platform come up with a product. So if your business is well situated when it comes to a product, well, this might be a good fit for you. So in other words, your product needs to have been developed to the point where it is a working prototype. You can then put it up. It's got to be a working prototype, otherwise Kickstarter won't allow you to put a project on here. And so then you can then raise money for to move this project of yours from a working prototype into mass production. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason why someone will invest in your particular project is because they would get that particular product delivered to their front door. And so that is what they're expecting. So in other words, there isn't that, it's not like donation-based crowdfunding where you don't get something tangible in return. If you're going to launch a project on Kickstarter, you have to produce a product ultimately that'll arrive at someone's front door. So it's not only products that can raise money on this particular platform. You can also have service-based projects as well, but it's predominantly for product-based projects. So if you're interested in using Kickstarter as a platform, I suggest you go into one of those categories that are stretched across the top there: arts, comics and illustrations, design and tech, film, food and crafts, games, music and publishing, and go into one of those sections that is closest to what you're interested in, and go and have a look at some of the campaigns, and in fact go and back some of the campaigns on this website, so that you can get a feel for how things look like from an investor's perspective. So Kickstarter is a huge website, and before COVID there were anything up to 5,000 projects that were live on any one day on this particular website. It dropped down to just under 3,000, and it's now picking up again. There seems to be much more interest in crowdfunding post-COVID than before. So a lot of people are looking at crowdfunding as a way to raise funds. Here are just some of the projects that I've had a look at yesterday that are on Kickstarter. There's someone's got a herb garden there. Another person there has got the mason jar gardens, and also a day school community garden as well. So these are just some of the projects that I found yesterday on the website that you might want to go and have a look at. Right. So Indiegogo is the other well-known website out there, and Indiegogo is similar to Kickstarter. It hasn't raised as much money, I might add, but it is it does very well, particularly with tech-based projects. So this particular example I thought you'd be very interested in, and based on your area of interest. And some of you may have come across it, but this is a beehive that was developed by a father-son combination down in Australia. And basically what it is that you insert a rod into the top of this beehive, you turn the handle and the honey comes pouring out. In other words, you don't upset or disturb the bees at all. It's a fantastic way of extracting honey from a beehive. And they went on to raise 12 million from their first crowdfunding campaign, and a year or two later, they went on to raise a similar amount again. So they've raised well over $20 million for this particular concept. Right, these are some projects that I found on this website yesterday. There's a compost education project there on the left, and in the middle there, a garden in your palm. And then on the right there, you've got an innovative urban project as well. So go and have a look at these projects, see whether you can get any inspiration. Essentially, at the end of the day, what people are getting if they're going to invest money in these platforms is something in return, and you can go and see those examples on that website. Right now, in the UK, the UK's most well-known crowdfunding website here is called Crowdfunders, based out in Newquay in Cornwall, and they have also evolved over time, and they're now offering what, 100% free fund if you raising funds for a coronavirus project. But anyway, you can now raise money as a charity or as a business or as a community project or as an individual, as for a campaign or cause. And so if you have a look at this, those are different categories that they've got at the moment. They've got a trending category: health and well-being, equality, environment and sustainability, community and citizenship, and so on. So once again, go into the category that you think that your project that you're wanting to raise funds for, go into that category and go and check out what is actually happening on this website. Now, the one thing that is different between Crowdfunder and the other two that I mentioned, that is Kickstarter and Indiegogo, is that Crowdfunder can offer you additional funding, extra funding. So in other words, this particular website work with companies out there, work with city councils, county councils, and various other bodies to provide additional funding. For example, there's someone that I assisted in Somerset. She raised £3,000 and the Plymouth Town Council gave her an additional £3,000. So in other words, she ended up with £6,000. So in other words, there are match funding opportunities available on this website, but you need to be able to go and see what is available at the time. You can see that on the screen there that the Coventry Fund is fully allocated, check back soon. So in other words, they'll probably make more funding available at some point in the future. So go in there and see whether your region will benefit from any of this additional funding, or whether it might at some point in the future. So check out the additional funding opportunities on this website. I took a screenshot of some of the projects that they've got on this website here. You can see that there's a garden project to provide a safe environment for vulnerable people. There's to support winter gardens, etc., etc. So go in and do a search. Put in your keyword that you want to search on, and you'll get a whole lot of projects that'll come up. You can see that these are all projects that are live right now. You can see some that have not raised anything yet, some that have raised 46% of their funds. And you will find that typically a rewards-based crowdfunding campaign normally lasts for about 30 days, and you can make it 40 or 50 or 60 days. You've got to find out from the actual platform as to how long you can actually keep a rewards-based crowdfunding project up there. There is normally a limit in terms of the duration. Typically it's 30 days, but in my mind, projects are starting to get shorter and shorter. 21 days is now becoming a successful period of time for some projects now as well. So have a look at what they have available on that website. Here's an example, Manor Community Garden, and they have got, this is a project that is currently live right now. They've got a target of 5,000. They've raised 20% of their funds, and you can see that they have, it is a flexible funding project, which this is one thing that you need to understand when it comes to rewards-based crowdfunding. You either go for a fixed funding target or a flexible funding target. Now, the fixed one is often referred to as all or nothing. So in other words, you've got to raise your target, otherwise you don't get any of the money. Whereas flexible funding means that if you don't raise everything, you can still walk away with whatever you've raised. And yeah, okay, so here's another one that Sarah pointed out to me that she's familiar with. Build It Together, Ford Hall Straw Bale Bunkhouse. They raised on the 19th of December 2018, £23,000 from 163 investors for their community social enterprise farm project. So to me, this is a good example of a successful crowdfunding campaign, and I suggest that you go and check that out and try and figure out what it is that made them successful. There is such a thing as success factors when it comes to a crowdfunding campaign. In order to be successful with a crowdfunding campaign, you need to have a whole lot of success factors in place. You don't have to have them all in place, but you need to have enough of them in place in order to reach your target. And you will find out a lot about what it takes to run a crowdfunding campaign by looking at others. So if you're interested in a rewards-based crowdfunding campaign or any crowdfunding type out there, from my point of view, the most important thing is to go out and do your research, check them out first, because some will succeed, some won't succeed, and you'll learn why some do and why some don't. Just by looking at them, you'll get a feel for some of the things that are happening. This is a good example of a campaign that succeeded, so go and check it out. Space Hive is another website similar to Crowdfunder. They're based out of London in this case, and they actually help community projects all over the country with spaces and various other things. They help you raise money for projects that help local opportunities. They also offer additional funding. They work with a lot of partners out there that can provide funding. So they say they have access to millions of pounds of funding from businesses, councils, companies, and so on. And so they also say that we have the highest fundraising success rate of any UK crowdfunding website out there. And the reason for that is that they offer you some support services. When it comes to crowdfunding, studies have shown that teams raise more money than single individuals. And so they help you with the team aspect of crowdfunding. So they will help provide you with guidance in terms of what you should be doing, how much you should be asking for. In other words, they'll be looking at a lot of the success factors and guiding you through the actual process itself. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, over 70% of all crowdfunding campaigns fail. And you don't want to be one of those 70% of campaigns that fail. So why do the other 30% succeed? Well, they succeed because they understand what it takes to succeed. And this particular website, Space Hive, will provide a lot of that support for you. So check them out. These are just some of their funding partners that they have to help you with your project's funding. And here, once again, are just some of the projects that I found yesterday on their website. And you can see 21% funded, 68% funded, 45% funded, and so on. So one of the success factors when it comes to a crowdfunding campaign is to is not to make your target too big. So in other words, your target must be in line with your crowd, in other words, with your crowd's ability to deliver on that target. And you can see that if you're, I've worked with a group that wanted £54,000, for example, and when I had a look at their crowd, I said, well, I don't think your crowd can deliver on £54,000. And they went ahead with a target of £54,000 anyway, and they ended up raising £4,000. My recommendation at the time is that they should have a target of 6,000, not 54,000. So at the end of the day, their campaign raised 4,000, but if they had put a target of 6,000 on there, I think they might well have got 6. So setting the right kind of target for your crowdfunding campaign is crucial. People like to associate with success. So in other words, if they feel that you're not going to reach your target, then it doesn't inspire them to support you. This is another one, another project that I came across on their website. And this is a project that helped transform a derelict plot of land into sustainability. The growing and production will be captured in an educational facility, including a photo exhibition. So that's what they raised £33,000 from 35 backers for that particular project. So I suggest that you go along and figure out what, go and have a look at these campaigns. These campaigns, whether they succeed or fail, are still available for view on all of these websites. So you can go and check them out, even though they might have taken place at some point in the past. Right, so when it comes to equity crowdfunding is when you sell shares in your business to others. And the most well-known website in this country is Crowdcube. It's based out of Exeter, and they have helped raise close on £1 billion for businesses here in the UK. And they have a whole lot of, they've got over 750,000 people who are registered on this platform. And these are people who are interested in investing in new business opportunities. And this is an example of one company in Swindon, for example, a recycling technologies company that they've gone crowdfunding 3 times now, but this was just a screenshot of one of their campaigns. You can see that they raised almost 4 million and gave away just over 12% equity in their business to 1,472 investors. So if you're structured or set up as a business, and if you're open to selling off shares in your business to others, then this kind of crowdfunding may well be for you. Another website out there that does equally well on the equity crowdfunding front is Cedars. They're based out of London. And once again, they've raised almost £1 billion for just over 1,000 businesses as well in the UK since they opened up their website. Now, these are just some examples of projects that have launched in the last 24 hours on their website. And you can see that the typical kind of funding that people ask for on these websites is quite hefty. The targets are quite hefty. And so when I first became involved in crowdfunding 8 years ago, the targets were in and around 80,000, 100,000. Now the average raise on these platforms is between 250,000 and £500,000. So in other words, if you're looking to raise funds on these platforms, you need to have a good business idea, and you need to clearly look at raising a significant amount of money. So this brings me to another concept called community shares, which some of you might be interested in. And in other words, it's not the true typical equity crowdfunding style based on those 2 crowdfunding websites that I've just shown you, Crowdcube and Cedars. This is also equity crowdfunding, but it's structured differently. It's based on a concept called community shares, and there are 2 companies out there. There's one website, the top one there, Community Shares, that you can go and check out all the information of how it all works. And then there's another company at the bottom there, the Community Shares company, which will help you actually put your community share project together. So you know, community shares is the concept of community shares refers to withdrawable share capital. So in other words, you have to be set up as a specific legal entity in order to benefit from this. You need to be a cooperative society or a community benefit society or a charitable community benefit society. In other words, that needs to be a legal structure before you can benefit from something like this. And these community shares can benefit all sorts of projects. Community shares have been used for communities to buy out the local pub, for example, or in this case, support local food growing, etc. So this might be something that some of you who are on the call today might be interested in. This particular concept of community shares since 2009 has found about 120,000 people who've backed over 100 million to support community businesses throughout the UK. So this is a particular example of a concept called Cultivate. They raised £88,000 from 62 people in the Oxford area. It was a social-based enterprise, and they wanted to make great local food, fairly priced, conveniently accessible to people in and around Oxford. And they had a target of 55,000, and they went right over their target for this particular example. So those are just, you might want to consider equity, and those are just some of the examples that might get you thinking whether that is suitable for you. I'm not going to spend too much time on debt-based crowdfunding. Basically, if you want a personal loan, Zopa is a well-known website out there that has lent out or loaned out billions. If you want a business loan, however, you've got to be in business for at least 2 years and to have a financial figures for those 2 years that you've been running before you can go on to Funding Circle and raise funds there. But Funding Circle, as you can see, has raised over 6.2 billion for over 57,000 businesses out there. Basically, instead of going to a bank for a loan, you can go to this website for a loan. Then when it comes to the initial coin offering, the ICO or the exchange offering, which is crowdfunding on the blockchain. This is also another way that you can raise funds. You don't have to understand how the blockchain technology works. All you need to know is that the cryptocurrencies live on top of the blockchain, and the most well-known cryptocurrency that lives on top of the blockchain is called Bitcoin. And there are websites out there that can help you raise money using Bitcoin. This is just an example of the Jamaican bobsleigh team. They qualified for the Sochi Olympics in 2014, and they were able to raise $30,000 from the Dogecoin cryptocurrency community. And then they did a traditional crowdfunding campaign after that and raised more money. And so this is a combination of raising money on the blockchain and raising money traditionally on a more typical crowdfunding platform, and together they raised 129,000 so that they could go off and participate in the Olympics. Now, this is another crowdfunding website called GiveTrack. It also uses the Bitcoin. It is purely a donation-based platform. It is based out of California, but there are projects that are currently on there raising money via Bitcoin for projects all around the world, as you can see. So once the money is raised in cryptocurrencies, it's then converted back into fiat currency, into pounds or dollars or euros or whatever the case might be, and then it goes towards the project. So if you're interested in this, or you have connections inside the Bitcoin community, or you have a crowd that lives online like that, who's got access to this kind of funding, then why not have a look at GiveTrack. Now, when it comes to crowdfunding, you'll probably hear of a lot of other crowdfunding websites out there. I'm going to go through just very quickly a whole lot of niche crowdfunding platforms. What I mean by niche, they actually service a particular aspect of crowdfunding. And you might find that a niche platform will serve you better than going to one of these general platforms that I've referred to now. The majority of them are rewards-based crowdfunding platforms, but you might find that some of them will be better for you. Now, Unbound is, for example, for authors. So this is a website that will help authors get their books crowdfunded. So in other words, this website not only helps you raise the money for the book, but they actually produce the book at the end of the day. This one's the house crowd. When crowdfunding is a great fit for property. Property and crowdfunding go very, very well together. And in the UK over the last couple of years, there have been a whole lot of crowdfunding websites that have popped up. So if you're thinking of looking at crowdfunding a fixed building, there might be some opportunities out there. So people will potentially invest in property this way. Well, they do. And so I think there's going to be tremendous growth when it comes to crowdfunding and property in the future. So that might be an opportunity for some in the future. Crowd Justice, this is a crowdfunding website where you can go and raise money for legal action. This is Brewdog. I'm sure you're all familiar with Brewdog. They have gone crowdfunding 7 times and raised well over 70 million from their crowd. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is that they didn't go onto any other platform. They actually used their own website and raised the money on their own website for most of that funding. And this is also a great example for that you can go crowdfunding more than once. So in other words, once you go crowdfunding, you can go crowdfunding again and again and again. For example, I know a company out there that goes crowdfunding every month. And every time they go crowdfunding, their crowd just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they raise more and more money. Hubbub is out there. It helps students raise money for their university education. There is Pledge Music out there, which helps bands raise money for their albums and for their concerts. However, I must point out at this point that Pledge Music has gone bankrupt, and it's also there to serve as an example that you must be careful about these niche crowdfunding platforms. If you're going to use any of them to go crowdfunding, make sure that they're pretty stable. This, however, was a huge website, and they unfortunately didn't run it properly, and a lot of bands lost a lot of money on here. But this used to be the world's premier music crowdfunding website, which is no more. Seed and Spark is for films and documentaries. They say they've got the highest crowdfunding success rate in the world, and that is because they really help support you put your film crowdfunding project together. Fig is for gamers, Dig Ventures is for your archaeology, Kiva is for business loans, small business loans for businesses all around the world. BritBots is for robotics and artificial intelligence projects, and so on and so on. So you get a whole ton of other crowdfunding websites out there. And unfortunately, when it comes to the food and drink sector, the website that was serving that particular sector had to close as well. Please be careful of some of these niche crowdfunding platforms. There are a ton of them out there, and I've just given you a smattering, if you like, in terms of what's available. Quickstarter, on the other hand, is a Kickstarter opportunity. Quickstarter is basically they want you to get a small crowdfunding win under your belt. So in other words, do a small campaign under 1,000. If you're unfamiliar with crowdfunding, I reckon go for a small crowdfunding campaign first. In other words, they want you to plan it in 3 months or less, keep the campaign under 20 days. The funding goal should be under 1,000, offer rewards under 50, shoot the video in 1 day, no PR or media outreach, no paid ads. So in other words, go for a small crowdfunding campaign before you go for a big one. Right, now this to me is subscription crowdfunding is also a rewards version, if you like, and the most well-known one out there is Patreon. I really think that you should give Patreon a good look, because this is a different type of crowdfunding. A crowdfunding campaign normally lasts 30 days, and it's normally a single campaign. It's got a beginning, middle, and an end. And whereas this here is a subscription crowdfunding model. In other words, these are the people who use it. but it can be for anybody. And I went on there and I found a lot of farming and agricultural projects on here. So what you're asking someone to do here is to pay a monthly contribution. So in other words, it's not a crowdfunding campaign that comes and goes and you raised a lot of money all at once, whereas this allows you to raise money on an ongoing basis. So they have what they refer to as a membership concept. So you can see here that your community or your crowd can come in and support you at £2.40 a month or $6 a month or whatever the case might be. And so you can have different levels as well. And you can see over here that they have 38 people who are supporting their project and they're generating $445 per month. So clearly you can start off small and go and check this example out, because and see what they're offering their subscribers in return on a regular monthly basis. It also helps you build your crowd, but it helps you build sustainable long-term income as well, as opposed to just a one-off income. You can see here that the people who gain access or membership into the community will be able to unlock the content that they have created on an ongoing basis. So check out Patreon as an opportunity to generate regular subscription based crowdfunding. Right, now when it comes to crowdfunding, all platforms charge a fee. This is Indiegogo, for example. All platforms will charge a transaction fee. So in other words, the company, say MasterCard or Visa, that processes the Visa or MasterCard transaction, they will always charge a fee. So every single campaign or website will charge a fee somewhere along the line. So go and check out what they're charging. Indiegogo charges 5% plus a transaction fee. So anywhere up to 8% gets taken off the top before you actually get your money. So check that out. These fees tend to change, especially during COVID. A lot of these websites have changed their fee structure, sometimes just for COVID, the period that we're going through. So have a look at what they're charging. Right, so when it comes to crowdfunding, I've just got a few more examples here. Just to get you in the mind in terms of what's available out there. This is the most crowdfunded book in history. They brought out 2 books and they raised well over 3 million. This is my niece. I bought her the 2 books, and this is a picture of her saying that, Isabel, thank you very much for the book you gave me. I'm enjoying it. I'm already on page 44. Now, the reason I popped this in here is that if you're going to go for a rewards-based crowdfunding campaign, go and back other people's campaigns and check out how they do it and when you receive your product and all the rest of it. This is another one here that I backed. I got a whole lot of chocolate in the post. Dairy-free, gluten-free, palm oil-free, soy-free, etc. This was a project on Kickstarter that did very well that I helped. This is another project in Swindon. They raised $12,000 for a film called The Silent Child. Some of you might have seen it, and it went off to the Oscars and won an Oscar based on the money that they raised on this crowdfunding campaign. So it's amazing what can happen after you've run a successful crowdfunding campaign. To me, once you've run a successful crowdfunding campaign, it often unlocks additional funding from all sorts of other sources. This is the Bicycle Academy down in Frome in Somerset. They raised $41,000 to equip a workshop so that they could offer courses on how to build your own bike. An incredible success. So this website, this particular campaign is a campaign that is an excellent example. They had a tremendous number of success factors in place which allowed them to raise that kind of money. Right, so when it comes to crowdfunding, I get asked questions all the time, and the most commonly asked questions I get are some of these questions. You know, how much money can I raise through crowdfunding? What target should I set for my crowdfunding campaign? Often comes up. How long should my campaign last for? Is another question. What is all or nothing versus flexible crowdfunding? How much time do I need to run a crowdfunding campaign? What rewards and pledges should I choose for my supporters? Who will give money to my campaign? You know, all of these questions are questions that are important to know the answer to before you go crowdfunding. Some people worried about their intellectual property as well. So there are various ways of managing all of this. So I suggest that you figure out what questions you need to have answered and go and find the answers to them. I'll provide some resources just now that you'll hopefully answer some of those questions. Now, when it comes to crowdfunding stats, there are lots of stats out there. It's very difficult to find decent stats, but here are just some of them. 42% of funds that are raised on a crowdfunding campaign normally come in the first and the last 3 days of the actual campaign itself. So in other words, most of the money will come in at the beginning of the campaign and at the end of the campaign. Campaigns with videos raise 105% more funds than those campaigns without videos. So it's important that you have video. Email converts more people into backers than anything else. So I suggest that that is something that you look into, is make sure that you get your email lists all sorted before you go crowdfunding, because email converts more people than all of social media combined 10 times over. Around 70% of all campaigns fail, which is unfortunate. Crowdfunding is up 35% on the past year, so clearly there's more and more interest in crowdfunding. In fact, had it not been for COVID, this year crowdfunding would have become a $100 billion industry this year. Campaigns that raise 33% of their funding within the first 24 hours are more likely to succeed. So this is absolutely crucial for the success of any campaign, is that you already have your crowd backing you before you go crowdfunding, so that you get 33% of your funding within the first 48 hours or the first 24 hours. Studies have shown that if that doesn't happen, then you're not likely to get you're not likely to reach your target. Right, crowdfunding, when it comes to regulation, donation and rewards-based crowdfunding are not regulated in various countries around the world, whereas equity and debt-based crowdfunding is regulated. So you've got to take cognizance of all of those issues as well. And crowdfunding on the blockchain is partly regulated, not in this country, but in other countries. Right, the benefits of crowdfunding. So to me, the biggest takeaway to crowdfunding is market validation. So in other words, it gives you an opportunity to put your idea up for the crowd, and then it's up to the crowd to decide whether they like it or not. And market validation is crucial. It's a very cheap, low-risk way of testing an idea, and that's to go crowdfunding. It's also an ultimate marketing and branding tool. So in my mind, it doesn't matter whether your campaign succeeds or fails. By virtue of the fact that you've gone crowdfunding, it gives you an opportunity to put the word out there and to raise brand awareness. It's also a great way to build the size of your crowd. As I mentioned, some people go crowdfunding every month, which means that they're growing their crowd every month. You also get a lot of customer data. Yes, when it comes to crowdfunding, most people think the benefit in terms of money. To me, money is not the most important takeaway when it comes to crowdfunding. It is there on the list, but it's not the most important thing. And also, when you've had a small successful crowdfunding campaign under your belt, it often unlocks additional funding. Right, quickly, the downsides to crowdfunding is time. It does take time to put a crowdfunding campaign together. People are worried about intellectual property. Some people are worried about the fee structure of the various websites that the various websites charge. Sometimes regulation can make it difficult for you to, if you're going equity or debt-based crowdfunding, it could make the workload a lot heavier. Not choosing the right website often results in a failed campaign. And also, over the years, since I've been involved in crowdfunding for 8 years now, the crowdfunding industry is becoming more diverse and complex. There's so many more opportunities out there. Yeah, well, with more opportunities, hopefully we could benefit more. Let's just finish off here with the future trends. This is one trend here. Women are more successful than men at crowdfunding. Several studies have shown that. Crowdfunding is now raising more money than venture capital for businesses on a global scale. I foresee bigger results for nonprofits. Nonprofits haven't really been using crowdfunding. They tend to be stuck in their own traditional ways of raising funds. Whereas I think crowdfunding can unlock a lot of positives, and I see nonprofits using crowdfunding more and more in the future. We'll also see more cryptocurrency in crowdfunding, and also more property crowdfunding as well going into the future. Right, to finish off, I have some resources that I'll leave you with, and I have a website called crowdfundingplaybook.com. You can go and check it out. And I also have on that website a community. So in other words, if you want to, you can go and check out the community. You can join it. I'm basically launching the community this week, so you'll be some of the first people to get into this community. If you want to, it's free. It just requires a sign up, and I've got a ton of resources there that you can go and check out. And also, please become involved in asking questions and helping other members out in the community. So that is a resource there for you. You can also find it at community.crowdfundingplaybook.com. So there we are. Just to finish off, my final message is crowdfunding is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if you are going to do a traditional crowdfunding campaign, it does require time, effort, energy, and some money when it comes to, say, a video. And it's always a good idea to work with a team. Teams raise more money than single individuals. So get a team going and share the workload out amongst the team. So, so when it comes to crowdfunding, the most important pain point when it comes to crowdfunding is the crowd. In other words, you need a crowd to go crowdfunding, and you obviously need time to run a crowdfunding campaign. You sometimes need some money if you can't source the resources from your crowd. You sometimes need money. Most of the money tends to go on the video, and your idea must be crowdfundable. So those are the 4 basic elements that you need in order to run a successful crowdfunding campaign. So thank you. And if you want slides, I'm quite happy to share with Sarah, Debbie, and Pearl the slides of this particular presentation. I can send them a link, and you can download all the slides from there. So that is it.
Brilliant.
Time for questions.
Thank you, Anthony. And just to say as well that, as I said before, this webinar has been recorded, so you'll be able to access it from the Growing Care Farming pages on the website. But as Anthony says, I'm sure if you wanted to contact him direct, you can get hold of that any information. It's certainly given me a lot of information. It's obviously a big old subject and one that I didn't know an awful lot about. So it's been a really sort of interesting introduction. And I think what you were just saying at the end is quite heartening about non-profits perhaps picking up this area more and it becoming more useful for them going forward and something that they can access. See, we have got some questions, definitely. I'm just going to tease one thing out from you actually, Anthony, and push you a little bit on that I wanted to pick up on through that. You mentioned about these targets, and you mentioned when you were sort of picking up on the FAQs that one of the things that people ask is, how do you go about setting your target? And I'm interested for sort of our care farming community, how do they go about calculating what sort of target their community might be able to contribute?
Well, that's probably the most difficult question to answer when it comes to a crowdfunding campaign. And I suppose to an extent, I've developed a bit of a sixth sense when it comes to that after having worked with so many project creators over the years. Some people have, some people have developed formulas that you can plug in all sorts of information and the formula will tell you what target you should actually ask for. Some people just suck a target out of their thumb and hope for the best. Essentially, you need to have an engaged community before you go crowdfunding, and you've got to have a sense of their ability to participate in your particular project. And to me, the biggest question that I leave people with in terms of determining their target, you might have a target in mind, but if you can answer this question truthfully that I'm gonna pose now, then that is probably one of the quickest guides in terms of determining what your target should be. And that is going back to something I've just said already, and that is, you need to be 100% confident that you can raise a third of your funding within the first 24 hours of launching your campaign. And if you are not comfortable that that will happen, then you've got to either do one or two things. You either got to bring your target down or grow your crowd before you go crowdfunding. And I'll give you an example. There was somebody who needed £12,000 and he knew he didn't have a crowd big enough for that £12,000. So what he did is he spent 18 months building his crowd before he went crowdfunding. And he grew it just using one online social media strategy, and that was launching a podcast on his topic of home insulation, believe it or not. But he built his crowd first before he went crowdfunding, before he felt confident that they would deliver on £12,000. So a guide there is, are you confident that you'll reach a third of your funding target within the first 24 hours of launching?
And so I guess building your crowd could be through strategies such as social media, something like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in other words, of all the crowdfunding projects that I've worked with, the hundreds over the years, the one tool that converts more backers into investors than any other is email. So in other words, what you should be doing before you go crowdfunding is to build a responsive email list. So because email outperforms all of social media combined 10 times over. And I need to repeat that, 10 times over. So in other words, most people tend to think that because they've got funders, followers on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all the rest of it, that is your crowd. That is not your crowd. In other words, those people, you need to engage them on those social media platforms, yes, but you need to drive them to part with the email. In other words, you need to find some way of getting them to part of the email address. And normally it is taking them from Instagram, Facebook, wherever, to a lead magnet, to a landing page that offers a lead magnet, and that on that page, they're more than happy to part of the email to get some sort of value that you're offering for free, which is normally delivered digitally afterwards. And then once you've got their name on an email list, then you've got to email them constantly, minimum once a week. So say you've got a 3-month or 2-month runway into your crowdfunding campaign, then email them every single week for 2 months before you go crowdfunding, because you get them engaged, you get them involved in surveys, you build up curiosity about what it is that you're doing, etc., etc., etc. They don't have to be long emails. They're just very short emails, just one picture, one concept, just to keep them engaged.
Great tip.
Do you want to deal with the questions? We've had quite a lot of questions come in, actually.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the first one is more of a tip, really. Someone said that rewards don't just have to be a product. Somebody once crowdfunded on Crowdfunder, and before starting the campaign, put some posts out asking if anybody wanted to donate rewards. And many people donated their time and services because they couldn't donate money, which meant that once the campaign started, people could purchase other people's services that had been donated. So that's a really, really good tip.
Excellent comment. Excellent comment, yes.
That's a really, really good insight, actually. Some more specific questions are, what kind of rewards can you expect to receive, as an example?
Well, the rewards is reward-based crowdfunding campaigns raise 3 times more money than donation-based campaigns. So when it comes to rewards, it should ideally be aimed at your main product or service. So if it's a product, then it should be aimed at that particular product. That should be your main reward. You should launch with between, say, 5 and 7 rewards. You can add another 1 or 2 during the actual 30-day campaign. But if it's a service, well, then you need to have different, if it's, say, a membership website, you can have the different levels that I mentioned in Patreon, for example, as your rewards. But the reward should be focused primarily on the actual product itself. In other words, don't go offering other a painting done by someone or something like that. It needs to be focused in on the actual concept that you're wanting to raise money for.
Yeah, just a couple more specific questions. again, around the same theme, but the returns that investors get, are the investments monitored some way?
When it comes to donations, well, if it comes to rewards, there's no one monitoring that. The crowdfunding website doesn't monitor that. So if you don't deliver, then it's basically a contract that you have between you and the person who provided the funds, and they can come after you if you don't deliver. There are quite a number of class action lawsuits in the United States at the moment, for example, where a whole group of people who've come together and they've gone after the person who promised to deliver something and he or she didn't. So yes, you don't want to be in that position, because you know your entire online reputation will be trashed.
Yes, totally.
by too much negative. By too many negative sentiments. So you
have to make sure you can deliver.
Exactly.
And then just one last question quickly, do you know if Patreon is a membership scheme?
Well, they offer a membership scheme. So in other words, you can create your own membership website on their platform.
Okay.
It's a piece of software which allows you to offer, that you can customize, and you can put your rewards in there, or different tiers, levels, priced at different levels, and then you can offer that to your crowd, and then they come in and decide to support you at one or other level. It's a monthly recurring commitment, so whoever joins has and the platform manages all of that. So in other words, yeah.
Great, and I think that's it. And just someone saying that this presentation has been so helpful. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, I would agree too. No more questions just come in the last minute, and Pearl, that's covered everything.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. That's been so interesting. I would like to stay on really and do more. And I think this is definitely something which I think now we've done this introduction, I can really sort of see people having a sort of interest in taking this a bit further and doing more on it. So if we do get the feedback and the desire from people, I think we might ask Anthony to do something sort of bit more involved for us, because as I say, I've certainly found it very useful. So I just want to thank everybody very much who's joined us today. And hang on, I'm just putting up the details for that. Yes. And particularly thanks to Anthony. I mean, it really has been very interesting. So thanks for your time and your expertise. And I think from the feedback we've had already and the responses, everybody's found it very useful. For everybody who has joined us, you're going to receive an automated email a few hours after this wraps up with a link to a short feedback survey. If you could please complete that, it does really help us keep track of who's accessing the resources and also any opportunities for us to learn and adapt as we go forward. And if you would like to see something sort of further on this subject, then obviously do fill it out on there. The webinar recording will be uploaded fairly shortly, and please, as always, feel free to contact any of the Growing Care Farming team for further information or support using the contact information on this slide here. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter. And if you're running any crowdfunding campaigns or looking to start something up, please do let us know, and do tag us into any social media posts that you'd like us to share. So thank you very much to everybody, and we look forward to seeing you all at our next webinar.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.